She was playing hide and seek with her brothers. 30 minutes later, her mother made a 999 call that would haunt Britain forever. July 1st, 2000 arrived as a perfect summer day in West Sussex, England. The sun beat down on golden cornfields near the coast, where 4 young siblings played hide and seek outside their grandparents' home. 8-year-old Sarah Payne was the imaginative heart of the family, a girly girl who loved pixies, fairies, and dolls. Her mother, Sarah, described her as full of energy around family, but timid with strangers. That evening, after dinner and a walk to the coastline, the children begged to stay out. Their parents agreed, placing 13-year-old Lee in charge. The group ran into the cornfield just meters from the house while the adults took their own stroll. When Michael and Sarah returned to settle the children for bed, they found only 3 waiting outside. Leslie, the grandmother, clutched Charlotte's hand tightly and asked if they had Sarah. The answer was no. Something had gone terribly wrong in those few minutes. The children explained what happened. Sarah had fallen and hit her head during the game. She ran off crying toward a gap in the harvest, intending to go back to the house alone. Lee turned for just a moment and lost sight of her. The siblings searched briefly before running home for help. Panic spread instantly through the family and neighbors. Everyone began racing through fields and along the beach, gathering more volunteers. Police arrived and launched what would become Operation Maple. At first, authorities believed Sarah had simply become lost in the countryside. They stated publicly there was no evidence of abduction, but the family knew better. This behavior was completely out of character for their daughter. Sarah would never wander off or hide for this long. As hours passed, the search intensified. Hundreds of officers and volunteers combed every inch of the area. Yet nothing was found. No clothing, no footprints, no clues whatsoever. The area where Sarah disappeared was remarkably isolated. One road led in and one road led out. Locals described it as a place where wealthy holiday makers rented seaside cottages, a community where everyone knew each other. There was little traffic and virtually no crime. Reporters noted that you needed a specific reason to travel down that road. Despite the peaceful setting, police were forced to confront a growing reality. Sarah had not wandered off. She had been taken. As officers took more detailed statements, Lee remembered something he had seen. A white van had passed by that evening. The driver was a scruffy-looking man who smiled and waved at him as he drove past. Lee watched the van speed away so fast that the tires screeched against the ground. He was just seconds behind his sister when she vanished. This was the first real lead in the case. Police immediately began door-to-door inquiries and questioned known sex offenders in the region. Within 48 hours, 2 arrests were made, but both suspects were quickly released due to insufficient evidence. Meanwhile, Sarah and Michael Payne made desperate appeals through every media outlet available. Sarah introduced Sarah's teddy bear to the cameras, explaining it had no name because Sarah would name it when she came home. The siblings wrote letters pleading for their sister's return. Luke spoke directly to Sarah, telling her the family was incomplete without her. The iconic photograph of Sarah in her red school uniform became the defining image of the search, appearing on newspapers and television screens across Britain. The public response was overwhelming. Thousands of leads poured in, every single one requiring investigation. The military was eventually brought in to assist. Sarah's case had become the largest in Sussex police history. 2 weeks passed with no sign of Sarah. Then came the devastating news. A farm worker had discovered the body of a young girl in a field in western Sussex, just 10 miles from where Sarah disappeared. She was naked, buried in a shallow grave, and severely decomposed. Forensic teams rushed to gather DNA samples. The family liaison officer arrived at the Payne home to prepare Michael and Sarah for the worst. But the media had already broken the story, and Sarah's siblings ran outside asking if it was true. Testing confirmed their worst fears. The body was Sarah Payne. A pathologist determined she had died from asphyxia in a sexually motivated attack. The case was now officially a murder investigation. Sarah made the heartbreaking decision not to view her daughter's body. She said the liaison officer returned from the scene as a shadow of the man who had left that morning. The murder investigation intensified. Crime Watch aired a reconstruction, and Detective Peter Kennedy appealed for witnesses. A lorry driver had been forced to brake sharply near the burial site that night, almost colliding with a vehicle pulling out from the exact spot. If that driver had noted the registration number, the case might have been solved sooner. Police focused on a Texaco garage at Buck Barn, asking if anyone had seen a nervous, agitated, dirty man that evening. Then came a crucial breakthrough. A woman reported seeing a shoe near the roadside, close to where Sarah's body was found. The shoe was collected and confirmed to belong to Sarah. Forensic testing on the Velcro strap revealed fibers. Those fibers would eventually lead investigators back to a man they had already questioned. Roy Whiting, a 41-year-old convicted pedophile, had been on their radar from the very beginning. Roy Whiting was a loner with a disturbing history. In 1995, he had abducted and sexually assaulted another 8-year-old girl in Crawley. He served only half of his 4-year sentence and was released in 1997, becoming one of the first people placed on Britain's new sex offenders register. A psychiatrist had warned Whiting would likely re-offend and could even kill his next victim. He moved to Littlehampton, just miles from where Sarah was last seen. When police first questioned him, he provided a false alibi, claiming he was at a fair 21 miles away. His flat was searched but yielded no evidence. However, surveillance teams later spotted him entering a white van he had purchased just a week before Sarah's disappearance. Inside, officers found a fuel receipt dated the day Sarah went missing. The van also contained children's blankets and toys. His alibi had completely collapsed. Despite the mounting evidence, police still lacked enough to charge Whiting with murder. Then he stole a car and led officers on a high-speed chase at 70 miles per hour before crashing. He was arrested for theft and dangerous driving, buying investigators precious time. Forensic teams meticulously examined his van. The interior had been lined with plywood that could be easily removed and burned, suggesting an attempt to destroy evidence. But they found a single blonde hair on a red sweatshirt inside the vehicle. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Sarah Payne. The shoe recovered from the roadside also yielded fibers matching the van's interior. In February 2001, after 7 months of forensic analysis, Roy Whiting was finally charged with Sarah's abduction and murder. He pleaded not guilty, forcing the Payne family to endure a painful trial where they would hear every disturbing detail of their daughter's final moments. The trial proceeded cautiously. Whiting's prior convictions were deliberately withheld from the jury to prevent any appeal based on prejudice. For 4 weeks, the prosecution presented its case. The evidence was overwhelming. The hair, the fibers, the fuel receipt, and the false alibi painted an inescapable picture. In December 2001, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The courtroom erupted in cries of relief and justice. Whiting was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 50 years. He would not be eligible for release until he was nearly 100 years old. But the family's nightmare did not end there. In 2014, Michael Payne was found dead in his flat at just 45 years old. He had struggled with depression and alcoholism, blaming himself every day for his daughter's death. The coroner ruled it was natural causes, but the family believed alcohol had played a role. Sarah Payne refused to let her daughter's death be meaningless. She campaigned tirelessly for Sarah's Law, a child sex offender disclosure scheme modeled after Megan's Law in America. More than 1 million people signed the petition. In 2008, the law was trialed, and in 2011, it was extended across England and Wales. Sarah received an MBE and later became Britain's first victims commissioner. She survived a brain aneurysm in 2009 and continued her advocacy work despite online harassment. In a painful development, Whiting successfully appealed his sentence in 2009, reducing his minimum term to 40 years. He will now be eligible for parole in 2041 at age 82. A statue now stands in Sarah's old primary school, symbolizing childhood innocence. Sarah continues to write letters to her daughter, keeping her memory alive. The family's fight for justice and child protection continues to this day.